from the School Education Gateway, an initiative of the European Commission that's managed by European Schoolnet. And I'm delighted to be here supporting this webinar. I'm Elin McCallum. I am the director of Bantani Education. We're a non-profit working in the area of entrepreneurial learning across Europe, looking at policy and practice. Now, I wanted to introduce you to the setup here today. We have our hosts, European Schoolnet, who will be managing the whole webinar. So Elina, Eleonora, and Asi are behind the scenes, supporting us to be able to successfully present this webinar today. Now, obviously, the first question is, can everybody hear me? If you just want to...
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. Is that Marjut?
Yes,
hello,
I can hear you.
Hello. Brilliant. We're getting lots of messages through.
This is
and we've got a lot of participants here today. We're delighted that you can join us. School Education Gateway is a forum really to bring together a range of different stakeholders who are interested in the topics that we address webinars on. There's usually a webinar each month. And we welcome ideas on perhaps what those webinars can be about, feedback on the webinars that you've participated in, and you can log into the School Education Gateway website, which also offers partnering facilities and really interesting resources around a range of different themes important to education. And obviously there are links there from School Education Gateway into the e-twinning area as well. That's that opportunity for teachers to connect and share across all of Europe. So without further ado, I'd like to perhaps provide a brief introduction to this topic, but I will just whet your appetite, as it were. We have two really great speakers with us today. We have Marjut Hiltunen from Finland, who is a teacher in Finnish school, and she is going to talk to us about phenomenon-based learning. Which is very much a new initiative that's come into the national curriculum in Finland. And she will explain what that is, how it's being implemented, a few practical insights about from her perspective as a teacher, and also, of course, highlighting how this links to problem solving as an entrepreneurial skill, really. Now, the second speaker will be Sandra Schön. She's from Austria. And she is a partner in a project called Do It Europe. Now, this is a project focused on entrepreneurial learning through innovative learning spaces such as makerspaces, fab labs, but also very much focused on this social innovation theme, taking away the emphasis on that perhaps many have with entrepreneurship education on business, and looking at solving social challenges, innovating to create social innovation and enabling young children, young people from 6 to 16 years to do that in different situations. So she will introduce this again with a focus on how the opportunity for problem solving is offered through that project. Now, if I can move on to setting the scene, perhaps. Now, with the European frameworks that we work within, there are 8 key competencies. And these vary from digital competence through to learning to learn, personal and social competence, citizenship competence, and of course, numeracy, literacy, and language. Now, one of those is entrepreneurship. And I wanted to share with you this definition of the entrepreneurship competence at European level to look at it acting upon opportunities, putting an idea into action. And very importantly, this has been revised. This definition was the key competence, in fact, were revised in 2018. And this is now the adopted one for the European key competence. And it really changes it slightly from before because it really puts the focus on ideas into action to create value for others. And that value can be, as before, financial, cultural, or social. So the actions that we're going to hear about today really do not focus necessarily on financial value. They focus on an opportunity that can be very broad. In phenomenon-based learning, it's a theme that we work around all of the different curriculum areas within. Within Do It, it's looking at that social innovation focus. So the reason I wanted to highlight this, because of this creating value for others, sometimes an entrepreneurial idea, be it something that addresses a community challenge, a social issue, is about finding a problem, defining your problem, and then addressing that problem, finding a solution that creates value for others. And this is why problem solving is so intimately involved with entrepreneurship education, with entrepreneurial learning, with Entrecomp. Now, Entrecomp, this key competence framework at European level, I just have a slide here just illustrating what really we can mean by creating social value, creating cultural value, or creating financial value, just to open up that understanding. And then you can have these slides, and they will be on the website at the end. And of course, the recording of the webinar will be on the website too. This webinar will be recorded and available. And this is it. The Entrecomp model it offers this picture of taking an idea into action to create value for others, and all the competencies, the skills, the mindset that's associated with that, many of which are developed through the two examples that we will hear from today. You can see here there are three areas: ideas to opportunities, resources, and into action. And those three areas break down into 5 competences per area. Now, each accompanied by a hint and a descriptor. Now, someone's raised their hand, which is Emil, I think. Emil, do you want to type a question in the chat box? And then if you have any questions, please do that. Yeah, Emil, if you want to type your question in the chat box, that would be perfect. And I'm very happy to answer that as we go along. Because Entrecomp is the framework within which we attempt to create a common understanding of what we mean by being entrepreneurial, by defining these competencies, and also then behind the competence flower, if you like, that you see in front of you here, there are also identified learning threads, really breaking down what we mean by creativity into defining the problem, designing the value, and more than that. And then behind that, again, learning outcomes that a teacher, a curriculum designer can take and use. And these models are being used in varying ways across Europe right now. But I wanted to give you just that flavor of what is the idea of being entrepreneurial at European level. And so what is the idea of this problem solving? Is that entrepreneurship education? Of course, because being entrepreneurial is spotting an opportunity, but equally it's about really defining a problem that you create a solution to. And that problem can be outside your classroom, it can be inside your classroom, it can be in the community, it can be something that really affects the world, it can be an economic opportunity, an economic problem, an issue, or it can be something that is about promoting cultural heritage, supporting tourism in the area. Which, or perhaps creating social change, addressing some of the challenges. So I didn't see a question come through from Emil, but we will have space for questions at the end of each presentation. So what I've done is giving you a brief overview of the Entrecomp model. If you Google Entrecomp into action, then we can really, you can see a guide and more information on it. But today I want to focus on the two examples that we have. So as I say, I'm delighted to welcome Marjut Hiltunen and also Sandra Schön, who represent activities happening in Finland and in Austria. But in Finland, it's very much a curriculum activity. In Austria, it's actually a transnational project that I'm sure Sandra will share which countries it's working across. It is many. So I think they're very different, they're very complementary, and they're very interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing more. So let me just, first of all, we asked you to participate in a survey before, and you can see here the results of the survey from all of the participants in this webinar. And I think this is illustrative that entrepreneurship education is less of a priority. Students perhaps don't necessarily have much of an opportunity to develop these entrepreneurial skills. Teachers are still in need of resources and students are in need of more opportunities to really exercise, apply these competencies, these entrepreneurial skills and mindset in practice within education. And students really need the opportunity to they don't yet develop these skills often enough as part of the curriculum. So that's why we want to have these webinars in order to support, share ideas and activities that are happening across Europe. So Marjut, I know that your presentation is now coming through soon. Here is your first slide. I will hand over to you. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very grateful for you for giving your time to this webinar, and looking forward to hearing more about your work. Thank you. I hand over.
Yes, thank you. Yes,
we can hear you. We
can
cannot
you hear
see
me?
you, so I don't know if you can turn on your camera.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I put my
Not
okay,
yet.
can you see
There's
me now?
usually a little button called Start Sharing on the front of your camera, which can be a bit tricky. I've missed it myself before a few times. Voila, there we go. Fantastic.
Okay,
Welcome.
now.
I will turn myself off and I will leave it to you. Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay, hello everyone. So, I'm Marjut Hiltunen, and I come from the city on the move in the central Finland, Jyväskylä. And shortly I'm going to talk about our school, where it's situated, and what the overall how many schools there are in Jyväskylä, and what the basis for the education is in Jyväskylä. And then I go into more detail what we have done in our school to promote the new phenomenon-based curriculum, which was introduced in 2016. So Jyväskylä, like I said, it's a very lively city, and we have a great emphasis on education. We have the university and many different schools on different levels, and I will show you the basic education figures in Jyväskylä at the moment, or last year. So we have 13,000 pupils in the basic education and 37 schools in primary and secondary education, or lower secondary education, and 1,161 teachers. 790 teachers in basic education. And there are, well, many other figures here, but I guess those are the most important for you to get a picture what kind of city Jyväskylä is when we talk about the basic education. And then I will go into the phenomenon-based learning approach and how we have used the entrepreneurial problem solving in learning. So what we have, like our guidelines for developing school culture is defined in the national core curriculum, and the goal is to build a school culture that promotes learning, interaction, participation, well-being, and sustainable way of living. And I think that Finnish schools must provide opportunities for experimentation and exploration, active learning, physical activity and play, and also teachers are required to treat children and young people as equal individuals and help them to proceed according to their own capabilities. So those are like really like important guidelines for school culture in Finland and in Jyväskylä. And then the new national core curriculum, which was published in 2014, and we put it into practice in 2016. And well, when we are talking about the phenomenon-based learning, it's not new. It has been in the curriculum before, but I think that it has got a new emphasis in this new curriculum, which hasn't been there in that way before. So one thing that is challenging, and I think I don't know, I can talk about the Finnish way of teaching, but we have the subjects, of course, in the primary school and in the secondary school, and especially in the secondary school, of course, we have the subject teachers, and we have 45 minutes of lessons, and we have English and Swedish and all the subjects, and it has been challenging to implement this new phenomenon-based learning into the everyday school work. So we have tried to get to make ways how to do that. So what we have done is that we have multidisciplinary learning modules in the curriculum. So the teachers are forced to combine different subject areas and like treat and deal with different themes from perspective of several subjects. And the way that we have done that is that we have at least one multidisciplinary learning module a year. So each school has to have every year at least one clearly defined theme, a project or a course that combines the content of different subjects and then deals with the phenomenon that we have chosen. And what the goals are deep learning, understanding of the whole, and yet dealing with the details, but then understanding the whole of the theme. So we integrate different subjects, and we choose different pedagogical methods to do that, and then we go outside the classroom, or try to do that, and try to give the education and the teaching in real contexts, if it's possible. And what we have done in our school in Mankolan is that last year, as you might know, we celebrated the 100 years of independence in Finland, and that was kind of a special year for Finland. So it was kind of clear that that was one of the things that we choose for the theme for that year, and that's what we did. And we were like asking the teachers and the students what would be the best theme for our projects, and we thought about that, and then I will come back to that, we chose forest. And after that, we asked the student questions about what would be what are the questions that rise from the theme. And these are the questions that the students came up with. So what's the relationship to the forest? What professions are associated with the forest? Why is it important to protect forests? What kind of art related to the forest? What is green? What does green gold mean? How many ways can you enjoy forest? Why forest is important topic to talk about, and why forests are essential part of the natural culture, and why is it so important in Finland. So that was the starting point for that. And I will go back in my slides and give some background. And this is our school, Mankolan School, and it's an old school, and we have the actual building, the oldest building that we have. It was founded in the 1930s, and it was a school for young women to learn to take care of home and farmland. And from that time, we had a greenhouse in our school. And when the new school was founded, we wanted to start the greenhouse again. And the school is also situated around, or there is forest around our school. So the forest and the nature, why we chose the theme nature, was kind of natural for us. So it was familiar to our students, and they had been working in the greenhouse and taking care of the garden and going to the forest before. So they felt that that would be the ideal theme or topic for the project that we were going to start. And so what we had to do after that, we had decided what the theme was, that we had to think about what is involved in the whole thing. So we needed to think about what subjects are together, what are the contexts that we are going to realize the project, where are we going from the school, from the classroom, how are we going to use the surrounding community, and what are the individual students going to do, what are their strengths, and how do we consider the elementary school and the lower secondary school kids, what are their contribution to the project. And so we started planning, and then we considered more facts, that how do we create the safe atmosphere for the project, and how do we catch the interest. Okay, we asked the questions, we got the theme from the students, so we gathered that they are motivated because it was their idea that we are going to explore forest as a whole. So, like I said, we defined the theme, asked the questions, set the goals together, and then defined the tasks and roles. And then we had to decide how to document the whole thing. And how we were going to assess the whole project. And so we decided what are the subjects that were going to take part in the learning process. So it was quite easy because forest as a whole, it gives you so many ideas like instantly. So there was music, art, poems, architecture, history, future, industry, food, economy, cultural heritage, tourism, sustainability, sports, animals, plants, and there might have been many more, but there's one list that about the things that we considered that were important. And so we planned together. So the teachers, the students, and what we used, it was ICT, of course, and we went outside school. We considered different strategies, and the students put their own experiences into the learning process, and we found meaningful contexts. And what was really important, that all the students were active during the process. And so one of the most important things were that the students learned to learn. So they were like assessing themselves, assessing the process, assessing each other through the whole process. And of course, because like I said before, we have the 45-minute lessons, and we start the day at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and we end the day at 2 or 3, and we work from Monday to Friday. So we had to really look closely to our the weekly schedule, how many hours we were going to use for this, and how we are going to make the best of the time that we had, because obviously we couldn't put so many hours to this the project. So we had to choose and plan it very, very carefully. And what we decided was that in August, September, what we did, we have kind of a harvest festival because of our greenhouse. So we started already in August, September, and we had inside the school, like the subjects, we had slow food project, and we talked about every man's rights. We went trekking into the forest, and then in November, December, we came back inside the classroom, and we did the stories and all the religious heritage we had concerning forest and nature. And then we did art from nature, and then we had some field trips. So we went to a paper mill, and we talked about sustainability. And then, of course, in winter, we could go into the forest and have all the winter activities in the forest. And in April, May, we did planting in the greenhouse, and we also have animals there. At the moment, we have bunnies. Every year we also have hens, or we incubate hens, like we have eggs, and we are incubating in Easter, so we get Easter chickens. And then we talked about how we use forest for recreational use and tourism. So this was kind of like how we planned the days, and how many days, and where they are, and what are the contents that we are dealing in during those days. And this is kind of a structure that one of the groups, we had different groups, and this was one of the structures, how they like planned what different groups did, and at what time, and who were involved. And it looks really complicated, and actually it was really complicated. And I can't really explain you in more detail about this, but it shows you how complicated it is to get everybody active and get it like implemented in our everyday school life. And so we decided the goals, tasks, and roles, and we had, like I said, we had to beforehand, we had to ensure that each student will learn all the necessary things needed in order to meet the learning objectives. So we had to teach them the basics, and then take into considerations the different strengths and interests that they might have. And then of course we had to make them aware of the goals, that what we were going to do with different students groups. And how we documented the whole thing is that we have this platform called Pedanet, and we created kind of a digital portfolio of growth and learning there. And there we wrote everything down, the different groups, and where they set their own goals, and where they put all the contents that they created. So it could have been a blog, a picture, an essay, a game, a written document, and then we could save it and then share it with everybody after the process. And of course, we had to think of a tool how to make the self-assessment and peer assessment, and how the teachers assessed the process and the outcome in the end. So what we wanted is that the students would like feel that they have the ownership of the thing that they were doing, and have the ownership during the whole process of learning. And of course it was it contained all kinds of learning. It was not only the content, it was the social surroundings, and the pupils interacting, the teachers interacting with each other, and so it was like learning in many ways. And so what we thought that is really important in the process is the assessment, and you have to like do it all the time, not in the end, but before, during the process, and then afterwards. So the feedback was like going through the whole process, and we saw it in very important that it's essential to assess and evaluate the process rather than the product, and then use the peer assessment and self-assessment all the time. And so it helped the students to learn to understand and analyze their own learning process, and then of course at the same time take more responsibility of their learning, and then like fostering the ability to learn also. And what were the good points in all of the process and all of the work we did is that most of the students were very active and excited, and we got good feedback from children who were participating. And in the project, every student did something really that they considered was important, and they took responsibility, and they could be innovative in a way that there were no restrictions for what they were doing. So they were looking at the same thing from different perspectives, and we hope that they saw the connections between different subjects. And at the same time, they got to use their problem-solving skills when they were asking the questions about the forest and how they could like approach the theme from the chosen perspective. So in all, it was really really valuable and really motivating process. And then the challenges, okay, to take the time for the planning between the teachers, because of course we had to think of the curriculum and the things that are in the curriculum that we have to teach the students during the school year. So in our projects we had to take the things, of course, from the curriculum, and so that everything would be thought and included in the project. And organizing the work, because some of the groups, when they decided their theme and their part of the theme, how to organize that everybody should have meaningful doing. So that there wouldn't be any, well, I don't know if it's dangerous or not, but to keep them active through the whole process, and so that they get the feeling that this is important what I'm doing, and this is I'm really interested in what I'm doing. And then because the subject matter models of schooling are so like, we are used to teaching our history, our biology, our languages, and then we have to think of the one theme from different perspectives, it really was difficult. And I don't know if it was difficult for teachers, but it was difficult for students sometimes. So they were wondering that, okay, if we are learning this, what about like English, or what about biology? And they didn't kind of see the subject in what they were doing. They didn't see the parts of biology, or they didn't see the parts of history like clearly when they were working in the project. And then the uncertainty and confusion, because in the beginning, when we were planning the process, we were planning the process, so the students were sorry, is there something? Can you hear me still?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you were saying, sorry, a couple of minutes left.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So when the teacher wasn't telling them all the time like what to do, and they weren't just sitting in the classroom and listening. But they had to decide themselves. It created confusion and uncertainty if they were doing the things right, because there wasn't any right or wrong things that they were doing. Everything that they did was like considered right, because that was the thing that they had decided to do. And what was really important was in the beginning were the questions what the students asked. What were the questions they wanted to know about the phenomenon that they were going to study, and how good the questions were, and how interesting, and how well they kept the questions in their minds during the process. So and the whole new way of approaching the theme and the project was really challenging for some students. But we are certainly going to do a new project, and we have learned a lot from the project and from the project from last year. So thank you for listening. So if you have any questions, please ask.
Coming through the different the chat room right now, saying thank you, and all the way through, there's been different comments saying that this is really just a fantastic project involving so many different subjects, so that it keeps the students interested. It addresses the mindset, the sort of the soft skills development, as well as then the sort of the knowledge-based development as well. And there's a lot of wishes that this could be happening in their country. And I know you've highlighted some of the challenges. So this is not easy, this approach to learning. But I have one question, and then I think we'll move to the presentation of perhaps we'll move to the presentation of Sandra, because I think it's very complementary. The sense that the Do It project put in a different way onto problem solving, and this kind of holistic learning, addressing social innovation, which very much is this social value, the social themes of what you've addressed through nature, through forests, in your work in Finland. So I'll save. We haven't got too many questions coming through, but we've got a couple. I'll save them till afterwards. We will run till around about 6:20. So we've got time for Sandra's presentation now, and then we'll come back and cover some questions there. So thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank you.
great stuff. Really, really interesting. Thank you. Over to you, Sandra.
Thank you.
Sandra, we can't hear you at the moment. I think we just need to unmute your microphone. 1 second. There we go.
Sorry for my start. So I'm very pleased that I'm able to present you this project and preliminary results of this project. I'm the coordinator. I'm Sandra Schön from Salzburg Research. We are one of 13 partners of this consortium of this European initiative, and I'm happy to present first results, our concept and our idea, of course, very basically to such interested people. So I would like to start very basically with the background of this European initiative. So we address the European challenge to we need more entrepreneurial thinking very generally. And what we try, we want to innovate entrepreneurial education in makerspaces. So we want to develop, test, evaluate, and disseminate a new learning approach. And I will, of course, describe that in more details later. And what is practically, or what should be of interest for you if you like this approach, our key results will be open educational resources where we will describe and give ideas, hints, share results, experiences as open license materials. As you can see, our project is co-financed by the European Commission, and we are a partnership from 13 European countries, partners. Most of them are makerspaces and fab labs, but of course we do have research organization there as well, and entrepreneurial experienced organization. Background of the idea is to foster entrepreneurial thinking is the idea that it's not something within our genes. So we use the citation of Peter F. Drucker to show that being an entrepreneur, having an entrepreneurial mindset to influence the future for our world and to do something which makes the world a little bit better is not something which is in your genes. You can learn that. And of course, this is the basic idea of the Do It project as well. As somebody can learn that, we can teach or educate that as well. We combine therefore 3 strands. So as Elin already introduced, everything what we are doing is social innovation. The kids, if they pick a problem where they have to find solution, entrepreneurial ideas, it's always something which it is for better world generally. And with our project, we want to influence how we think about entrepreneurial education. And our project is always placed in a makerspace. But of course, if you have a quite normal traditional workshop room, that you can do the similar things. So it's not really needed to have the digital tools, but this is our world because we think that it's fitting to our current educational system and needs. So if you think about social innovation, we always refer to the Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, they are very general, and it sounds that children eventually, it's tricky for them to deal with them, but practically we have found out that if they typically think about their general surrounding, and it's very easy for them to tackle problems under these very general UN sustainability goals in their direct environment. I will share later some examples of that. And if we think about entrepreneurial education, and this is eventually, if you're not so experienced to entrepreneurial education and the current European thinking, so what the European Commission is thinking, but Elin already introduced that as well. It's not only about financial things. If the European Commission is talking about entrepreneurial education, they want to develop skills and mindset which allow people to turn creative ideas into entrepreneurial action. And this is not directly related to getting new millionaires. This is really direct and connected to getting kids into the situation that they can influence their future and practically do something, because you always need support, for example, if you want to bring something into the world. And our learning room is a makerspace. I'm not too sure if everybody is used to that term. So a makerspace is a workshop room where you have traditional tools and, of course, at least some digital fabrication tools for co-design and prototyping. So it's not only the space itself, it's also the setting that everything, all the tools are openly available, that you can do something. It's the mindset as well, and the practical ability to do something within such a room, and they are not forced to sit in a classroom. The maker tools kids usually use, or what we use in our projects, are, of course, you always refer to a 3D printer, but practically only some of the project works with a 3D printer. Of course, we use IT, a laptop, the internet. Some of us use robotics or typical hardware, for example, the Raspberry Pi, but of course, this is only for the bigger kids. And there are a lot of special toolkits. You see eventually the Makey kit here, which is used several times. And what is important, at least for the older kids in our settings, is the smartphone and the apps you can use on a smartphone to create new things. So the things we are creating are real things, or of course they can be as well virtual things like an app or a game. And yeah, what is so special about the maker education? If you compare that with a typical classroom setting, you have a constructivistic way of learning. The kid is an active learner. She or he is creating something, and the teacher is not a real traditional teacher. He's a facilitator, an enabler, co-creator, which is very important and not so easy for typical teachers sometimes. And what is special about the makerspace setting as well? Of course, there are some tools which are expensive, but if you compare the setting with a typical IT room, for example, it's not that it's too expensive. So the real tools, we have to invest some, but the materials are typically, for example, upcycled materials. So compared with a very modern IT space, the makerspace, a typical makerspace, is not so expensive. But of course, if you compare that to a classroom setting, it is. The objective of the Do It program is to support the skills development for all steps in an innovation project or innovation journey. So we train, or we help the kids to identify a social need, to create something together, to prototype. This is very important, to share our ideas and to find, of course, to share as well these success stories of the kids. So to go into more details. Oh, there is missing one slide. I'm not sure about why. That was my Do It program. So the overview about the process. I hope that I can share you later as well. So there should be a slide, and I'm not sure why this is missing, about the 7 steps we defined. So just to give you an idea about that, we start always with co-design. So the kids are asked to do something just because they can. They are. It's important that they do what matters. So we collect ideas for very concrete social innovations and challenges. We always do it together. We do it very practically, and now so prototyping is very important, and to use all possibilities of a makerspace setting. Reflection is important, and of course then as well we always show the kids how they can do more of it. So we give possibilities to give support to, for example, to share the ideas with others, to find people who can help. And coming back to the idea of this webinar today, so where is the problem finding in Do It? So the kids have to look for a problem and to define their own problem, and typically they do that in their personal surroundings. So, for example, for their school, this is not very easy. But what is important that these challenges are real challenges. That means it's not a problem defined by a teacher or well defined as well. These problems the kids want to tackle are really challenging, and of course that part of that is eventually that it's tricky to find a solution, or it's not that they really can get a final solution, but this is the main idea of Do It, that they tackle really challenges which have a certain need. On this slide, you see what we are going to do, and you find as already some of these activity descriptions at our homepage. So at the Do It platform, you will find some exemplary materials we are currently developing, which are for facilitators, so teachers, of course, that could be older kids as well who want to do something within their school, or parents. And some of the future results will be, we would try to develop ideas, how these ideas could be implemented in European policies, strategies. We will do facilitator and an open online course, for example, to share not only our materials, but also how to deal with them. And we part of our project is that we want to share success stories of the kids. So what they did within Do It or within other projects, because we are not alone. There are several other initiatives dealing with the same issues. And we want to share these stories of young social innovators with very small successes, but of course with very big successes as well. And to go on, I want to share your first results. So currently we are finalizing our first pilot phase. And again, I missed there a slide. This is really a pity, because the slides explained you, or should explain you, what we are doing in our evaluation. So I have to introduce you there to a certain term. What we are doing, building up on our Do It program, is we do it actions, and a Do It action is always building up on our Do It program, and is a 15 hours long intervention. But we do have a certain variety of how we implement these 15 hours. So some of our Do It action were about 2.5 months long, and others were just 2.5 days. So the 15 hours were very, there were a lot of varieties. And of course, we do have a lot of different settings. So we do have 10 testing regions. For example, Finland, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Austria, Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Lithuania not, but we do have a partner there. I'm not sure if I have all, but we have 10 of these pilot regions. And we tested settings in schools as well outside school. So settings within a makerspace, for example. We tested settings from 6 to 16 years old, so only settings with younger kids and settings with older kids, or with a variety, with a bigger span of the age groups. And to show results of that, what the kids were just developing, these are sketches and a final picture of a prototype. 10 and 11 years old kids were developing in Belgium. The idea was there to do something to make the school better. That was practically the basic idea. And then the kids, of course, considered what they can do. And these group brought up the idea. And that was, of course, for me very, very funny, because I never thought about that in their class, in their school, the summer is very hot. And they wanted to do something against that, and develop the idea of a personal fan. And they started to sketch that, and then they made an iteration. They discussed how they can do, and then of course they started to make a white prototype. White prototype is important because if they don't work with colors, they usually are more concentrating on the features of a prototype. And this prototype is fully working, so it is fully producing cold air if it is switched on, and it automatically starts because it has a sensor when it's too hot. Just another project, and the kids got the same topic. The topic here was a similar topic, at least in Austria and Salzburg. The kids got the topic of health and fitness for their school. And I have to emphasize that because that is not a topic that was brought in by adults. The kids decided in the co-design workshop that for their school and for them, it's very important to address accident prevention. So no one of the adults was part of that. That was the kids' decision that this is important for them, because practically they had an accident some months before. And how we started was that we just started and asked the kids to go around and take pictures from spots in their school where they had accidents or where they see it could be something there. We call that social detective. And for example, the first photo is done by the kids. They have decided that the stage is a problem because sometimes, and as we have heard, not so seldom, the kids are falling down. So it's not very high, but it's just that the kids cannot see that the stage is over. And they made a sketch and then a prototype where they showed how they see a solution that it's easier to feel that there is that they are already near to the end of the stage. And happily, the director and principal of the school announced that this will be implemented as well. Another project from another pilot with older kids, in that case 8 to 10, 11 years old. This is a sensor-based laundry room dehydrator. It was meant for a grandma who is too old to go to the cellar and to check the washing machine every day. But if it's wet, now the sensor is ringing and starts again a fan which automatically dry the water. Of course, this is only a prototype, but it's working. And the kids were very proud, as you can imagine, to show that. I'm not sure if I have so much time because I see that some of you are already leaving. But this is one of the examples where I want to highlight that typically we only go to the stage of a prototype, but sometimes we do have real products. And in that case, the school or the kids in the school developed a cereal bar, their own school cereal bar. So they decided for ingredients for a recipe. They sketched forms. They made cookie cluster with 3D printing and decided about their very original own cookie cluster form. And of course, they developed a lot of things which are needed to market that new product, which is their own school product, and it's where everything is open available, of course. So they made a poster, a booth where they wanted to show and share their first cereal bars, a video, and of course they defined packaging. So this is one of the final products of the school. All the kids and parents and teachers can do that cereal bar and apply and share all these materials. Considering the experience we did within our Do It pilots, we have had a deeper look concerning self-efficacy and creativity as basic skills for entrepreneurial education and learning. And there we all agree as pilot and practice partners that the public presentation was always the issue where we have seen that self-efficacy is really that the project really worked well out for self-efficacy, because the kids were just so proud to show their results, to show that they did something where the parents, typically the parents, were completely surprised, and where they did something which could have at least a potential impact for the schools as well. And of course, this is very nice to see and to follow. Concerning teamwork, we have seen that in some of the pilots this really worked well, also in groups with a further age span, which are typically where the kids are typically not working together in classes, but that worked well. We were surprised about that. So the topics and the setting is helpful with that. And okay, that were my first experience I wanted to share today with you. And of course, we will share more of these experiences, figures, and facts of the first pilot and second pilot phase as well. What we do as well, we do as well online pilots for kids, not really for kids, because the online pilots are addressed to some older kids from 14 to about 16 years. And if you know some of them who wants to work together for about 4 weeks on the topic of living together. So we as well address cultural values. It's no registration needed. They can just have a look at our website. We start on Monday in 2 weeks, and in May we will start a second round. And there we will introduce and guide to the development of social innovations for these special age groups. And of course, it's not me doing that, as we highlight co-design and co-development. A young moderator, Louisa is 21, will moderate that, and she asked already a lot of these young social entrepreneurs to share their ideas. So it's really something for this certain age group, and not really for us. So I'm 40, I can say that, hopefully. So thanks a lot. If you're interested to know more about that project, of course, you can visit our project page, but I show you as well, again, the logos of my partners, but eventually you can just see and figure out that there is someone from your country. And if it's not, of course, you can contact us anyway. But I guess if you find someone and you say, oh, yes, I know them, that is eventually the easiest way to get into contact. Of course, you can just write me an email, or follow us at one of the social media channels we are dealing with, or at our platform. So doit-europe.net, and you will find our first results, updates, and of course you can subscribe to our newsletter as well. So from my side, I'm ready, but I hope that we will have some questions. I think both of us.
I think there might be some questions. Can you hear me okay? Great.
Yes.
Great. And do you know, it's quite dark in my room. So 1 second, I'm just going to put the light on. There we go. Voila, I can now be seen. Hello. So thank you so much, Sandra. That was incredibly interesting, and I think very clear as to how the Do It project is really offering an opportunity for young people to engage in interesting, exciting, engaging activities, both in makerspaces and also sort of, you know, different spaces beyond as well. It's the opportunity to implement the methodologies that you're using, and excitingly, an opportunity for different partners to engage online. So that's something that could be of interest. Now, questions. I have a few that I've picked up, and I will manage those questions now for both Marjut and for Sandra. Perhaps the first question for Marjut, if you are, thank you. Now, one person wanted to know how many teachers were involved in your in the work happening in your school. You showed that sort of the grid of how organized, but how many teachers were involved?
Yes.
40 teachers. Okay, is that across the whole school or?
Yeah.
Okay.
40
And
teachers.
so my next question, which I picked up from a
Yes.
colleague in the chat area, was this only
The whole
done
school,
during the
because we
school
have
timetable? So it was very much
640
in the
students and
curriculum.
primary and secondary school, and we have altogether 40 teachers.
Okay.
So all of them were involved. Yes.
Okay. So any other questions coming through, please let me know. Perhaps a question for Sandra. Are there some challenges that
Yes.
teachers are
Yes.
finding to
Yeah.
implementing your work,
That's
perhaps?
correct.
Are there any challenges that they're facing?
Yes, of course. Practically, only half of our pilot activities were within a school. So the idea is really, so what we're doing is really something new. So we really try to bring together as well makerspaces into schools. And this cooperation is, of course, a challenge, because this is a complete different space, background, people working there. And that's not, and of course, the whole setting, as I described, that it's not, it's, of course, this differs a lot in between the countries and regions we are working with, but it's not really typically fitting to a class scheme or a normal school day. And of course, it's always tricky in the cases where the partners worked with schools, that we find out how we could bring that into the daily routine, or if there is a possibility to introduce and deal with that. For example, if they have a project day that worked very fine within the school day, or we just went to the daycare in the afternoon. There it was practically always very easy. So this is, of course, an issue, because the idea and tools and activities are so far not really fitting to a typical 40 minutes activity. Not only, but as we're not only with teachers, we bring in people from makerspace. So practically, we need a setting where we have typically more time, that it makes sense to work in that special setting. And of course, this is a challenge. So this is a challenge and a feature, I think. So we want to make something new, so organizationally. And of course, that means that we cannot really start to do that in the original scheme and classroom. And just to add on, for example, this makerspace feeling or setting and this change of roles was always, at least the partners told me, but this is not really a fixed result. So I have to wait for the official evaluation results. But when we were talking about our experiences, we developed the feeling that it's easier for us to get into this makerspace mood and feeling if it's outside of the school.
Interesting, because of course,
especially if it's a traditionally school system where they typically are not asked, the kids are not asked to do something self-organized, to create own ideas, to work together in teams, etc.
Interesting. So sometimes the structure of the school might be a barrier, and sometimes the culture of the school might be a barrier as well. But outside school, that sort of non-formal learning opportunity is a space where this is flourishing. It'll be really interesting to see and compare and contrast the results from the different modes of delivery that you follow. Okay. So one question coming in for Marjut. Digital portfolio. You highlighted the use of a digital portfolio in your work. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yes. So, like I said, it's a platform which is used for when in every schoolwork, in every subject, like ordinary schoolwork, that where students can. it's used widely in Finland in different schools and organizations, and actually universities also. So you can load all kinds of things there. You can put pictures, whatever work you have done, and there are different how do I say, modules, or different kind of modules in the platform where you can read the other students' work and assess it, and so
Okay.
I don't know if it's the best one,
name
but
for
it
that
works
digital portfolio
for us, and at the
program,
moment
or
it's good for our
sorry?
needs. But it's created
Could you write it
for
down in the
schools
chat room?
and
That would be great, because I can't quite hear Pedamet.
for education especially.
There we go. Marjut is writing that in the chat room. That would be really good. So perhaps just to with Sandra, you mentioned there's an opportunity for countries to spot, for our participants to spot which partners are from their country. But they can go to the website and look at that too. And can you just reiterate maybe the opportunities for the partners here that they might have to get involved in your project?
We have certain opportunities. For example, of course, our materials will be published step by step. So the project approach itself is a co-design approach, and we of course want to test everything before we share it with the world. But so you find a first selection of materials where we have the feeling that they worked in our pilot activities at the website in our so-called toolbox. And of course, that will be more. Eventually, we will have something like a selection of the best. I'm not sure about that, but this is our current work. Then additionally, we do have these online pilots for kids from 14 to 16. And later on, where everybody, of course, is invited as well, we will start an online course for potential facilitators in April 2020. So finally, if everything is ready, and we had published all these hopefully interesting and helpful materials for potential do-it action or similar activities, everybody is asked who is online. So the people who are in this webinar can easily just participate there as well in our online course. So this will start in April.
And so the best thing would be to sign up to the Do It newsletter.
It would be very helpful indeed. And of course, I guess some of the participants can share interesting stories of kids as well. We are very happy to share these stories. If you have a nice story from a kid starting with 6 or 10, and of course it would be a very easy story, a small success, and we were happy to support the writing of these stories, and we will share that, of course, as open educational resources.
Fantastic. Nuno Lanza has just said that he's going to check your materials, and he's setting up a 3D print shop in his classes for these kinds of projects. So good luck, Nuno. And we will, perhaps you can join the Do It newsletter. Jean has already put the website address onto the chat area, so please register for that newsletter. I also know a little bit about this project, and it's fantastic, and I think the potential is very exciting.
Thank you very much. So yes, well, sorry for interrupting. We as well, of course, we will present project as well, people who are doing something. We call that these people heroes and doers, etc. So we are happy to share all these other related initiatives as well at the website, because it's not we are not the first, we are not the only. Eventually, we are one of the bigger initiatives, but really to get something into and to have some further later successes, we really need to work together.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to Sandra for presenting the doiteurope.net project and really looking at defining best practice when it comes to developing entrepreneurial skills, mindset for young social innovators, to really look at how young people can and should and are able to have an impact on the society around them and around the world. And then from Finland, Marjut, Hiltunen, thank you so much for joining us and sharing a really fantastic example of phenomenon-based learning where you're bringing together a whole school of teachers to deliver innovative, interactive, student-focused and led learning around a specific phenomena, topic, theme. And it's very exciting to be able to hear about that. It's a new initiative in an approach in Finland. I think from what we've heard from Maria, it's still being developed and learned about, but it's certainly an interesting approach that we'll be looking at closely from elsewhere, where we don't have these kinds of activities perhaps yet so widespread in our curriculums, but we like the sound of them, and learning from those people who take this to a big scale, to across a whole country. First of all, we can learn so much from your experiences. So thank you so much to Sandra and to Marjut for sharing your information, your experience, your expertise. You can see on the screen now, we'd love you to take our feedback survey. Please tell us how we're doing. Tell us what webinars you'd like next. School Education Gateway is about supporting your learning and your interests. You can also receive a certificate. Please submit your details. It's not an automatic process, but submit your email there and you will get a certificate of participation. You've got the link there to download the slides and watch the recording. And of course, the bottom link there, find out more about upcoming webinars. And I advocate, if you can rate this webinar, you can add a comment, you can add a thought, you can tell others how useful it is or how you might feel about changing it. So please, interact with us as we hopefully have interacted with you and shared some information and knowledge as well. And hopefully, like me, I think I've been inspired by what I've heard today, and I'll be going away to find out more about both topics. Thank you so much again to our speakers, and thank you so much to everyone has been participating from both Europe and around the world. I think we've had participants from South America, Europe, and other places. So really quite global. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, and there's more webinars coming up next month on the School Education Gateway. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Have a nice evening.